Hi, welcome to Focus with Big Smith. My name is Leroy Smith, and speaking with me today would be Mr. Egbert Carter, an engineer and architect. Welcome to the program, Mr. Carter.
Thank you very much. Indeed, engineer, but not so much of an architect. People think I'm an architect, but I usually masquerade as an architect. I'm really
Okay.
a qualified civil engineer.
All right, so today we'll be speaking about City Hall. We're going to get a little bit of the history and so on. So my first question to you today would be to give us my first request would for you to give us a concise history, brief but concise history of City Hall as it is, the building that we know.
Okay. City Hall itself was opened on the 1st of July, 1889, right? And the governor at the time was a governor named Gormanston. And the mayor at the time was a guy named Forshaw, after whom Forshaw Street is named, right? The structure itself has seen a lot of work. In fact, it's been allowed to deteriorate. I dare put it that way, it's been allowed to deteriorate, which is so very sad. But I think there's still room for it because, like St. George's Cathedral, it could be corrected and be salvaged.
Okay. This building is in a state of disrepair as we speak. Why is it necessary for this building to be rehabilitated?
I think it's part of our built heritage. If you look along this particular street here, you can see the Parliament building built in 1834. You can see St. Andrew's Court opened in 1818, Victoria Law Courts in 1887, Magistrate Court in 1890, and you can go down the line, and this building was 1889. You know, and there's so many beautiful buildings in the city that are part of our built heritage. We don't seem to have the interest in preserving. The private sector has done a very good job in maintaining them, are mutual as well as hand in hand.
What is the significance with City Hall being strategically placed along Regent and Avenue of the Republic?
Very good question. In fact, the first thought when they thought about building a city hall, they thought about building where the present library is, because at that time it was just an open site, and the Prince of Wales was coming to visit, and they thought maybe she should build it there. But then public opinion was against that. Now the mayor at the time, a guy by the name of Forshaw, he bought this piece of land that is and donated it to the city, and so that's how come it's built here. He was the mayor at the time when the city hall was built, and opened in the 1st of July, 1889.
We're going to step back a bit. Give us a brief history of City Hall, this building called City Hall. Give us a brief history of how this came into being.
Okay. City Hall, as I said before, the cornerstone was laid about 2 years earlier, and a picture of the cornerstone is available. You can see the cornerstone today. But the building itself was built, the architect was Father Scholas, he was a Jesuit priest, and the guy who built it, the superintendent, was a guy named Hill, Mr. Hill, Luke Hill. Now, that building itself is very, 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 very rich in architecture because it's a kind of Gothic structure. And a lot of the details you see, people think is a gingerbread structure, you know. It's very nice. It's a shame that it's been allowed to deteriorate to the point where it is. But like most buildings, if the amount of effort you put in anything will determine the results. You know, we have put very much effort into maintaining that.
You would recommended some time back, let me get my notes correct here. You would recommended some time back that this building be restored.
Yes.
What came about, or what became of your recommendations to City Hall?
Well, I mean, anybody can make a recommendation, but whether people will follow it up is a different story. The truth be told, I think the last Mayor Hamilton Green, had a committee, myself, George Jardim, Barclay Wickham, and Eddie Grant, the singer. And he thought that we should get involved in trying to rehabilitate it. In fact, we did make a spirited start, but that start was poured over cold water by the present town clerk, the previous town clerk, Ms. Suba. Because on Saturday 2030, when I came to finish out the levels, she asked the security to put me out of the compound. Only God knows why, but anyway, that's all history now. Right.
What is your personal history with City Hall? What your involvement with City Hall?
Well, I came back to Ghana in 1969, having studied engineering in Britain. And I was offered a job at City Hall as assistant city engineer. So I worked here from the 1st of October 1969 until the 30th of June 1973. And I was very happy working here. But I think the politics of the day determined that I couldn't stay on. Unbelievable, but it's true.
How did you feel being, quote unquote, evicted back there in 2013? You know, having been such an integral part of all that has been taking place here.
I was very pleased that the mayor asked me because I have a very good working knowledge of the building. And when I was asked to leave, well, I felt a bit disappointed, but I don't know what was the reason. But anyway, I'm here. I'm grateful to you for the opportunity to be able to share my knowledge with the citizens of Georgetown.
Okay, City Hall has received a lot of cosmetic repairs over the years. What are some of the real works that need to be done on this structure at the back of us in order to restore it to its former glory?
But in fact, the first thing we need attention is the roof. The roof was once all slate, because slate was the dominant material used in for roofing in those days. But since then, they changed it, say, the slate to asphalt shingle. Nothing wrong with that, except that over a period of years, the asphalt shingle has deteriorated, and so now we really need to do a proper job, you know. Besides that, if you take levels around the building as I've done, the tower in the northeast corner of the tower has sunk 7 inches. Well, to be quite accurate, 6 and 5 years, 3/8 of an inch short, 7 inches. And I tell you that because the drainage around the site has been so poor, water lodged and caused the building to settle differentially. You know, that's so unfortunate. Together with the electrics, as you can imagine, when the building was done in 1889, there was no electricity in Guyana. The electricity came to Georgetown in 1891, 2 years later. So all the electrical in the building has been done since then. And in fact, the wiring is so tired, for want of a better word, that sometimes you could actually see fire started, you know. I have a picture of a fire started in the building.
How much do you think, from your experience in buildings and construction and so on, how much do you think it's going to cost this state, this country, to bring this building back to its former glory?
Well, that's a very tough question because as you know, you only discover what's wrong when you start taking down the parts, you know. But in truth and fact, the European Union had dedicated some of $200 million Guyana, which I think is more or less adequate to be able to complete the building. Because we need to change a lot of this material. All the guttering needs to be cast iron, which we can do. A lot of the columns are all cast iron steel. The railings, all the dressing are all cast iron. We can have it done, man. That's not a problem. If you look at the fence itself has been deteriorated. Because on top of the fence has this little, what they call a fleur de lis. If you look at the top of the dark, you see the thing on the top, the same thing was around this building. Everything is gone now. People are stolen it.
There was a restoration fund, which was launched some time back. I don't know if you're familiar with it. What are your thoughts? Are you familiar with the restoration fund?
No, I do know of it by reading about it in the press, but whether money was collected, I don't understand.
Okay, haven't read about it and so on. What are your thoughts on a restoration fund for City Hall?
It's a great idea. At least the citizens will feel a commitment having put the money in place, you know. But the truth is, that kind of fund wouldn't do. We need a input from central government, you know. After all, it's our national patrimony. It shouldn't matter which political party you support. It should be a thing that citizens could be appreciative of, you know.
I'm glad that you raised the point of politics and the restoration fund not being enough. My other question to you now would be, what do you believe to be the reason for City Hall arriving, this building arriving at its present physical condition? What do you think is responsible for that?
Well, you know, if I were to be honest, I would say this. The last government was very cultural, with the president like David Grange, who was a historian. You would have thought at least he would have put his hand in his pocket to help the situation, because the previous government, the PP at the time, I say they're very agricultural. If you want to build a farm a road from the rice field to the market, they built in a weekend. But they're not very culturally oriented, in my opinion. So I thought that maybe the last government would be more interested, but nothing at all. So it's left to us as a people to make enough noise so that somebody somewhere can take off a dhoti and put a hand in the bloody pocket.
Are you disappointed at the previous government having, especially with President Granger, former President Granger, as you rightfully pointed out, being a historian and so on? Are you disappointed that he did not, pay much attention to this building?
In fact, they didn't pay any attention. The building just deteriorated and continues to deteriorate. It's very sad. You know, you'd think that those guys would be a lot more interested in what's going on, but no. Sadly, not any attention was paid. I won't say enough, not any attention was paid.
The fact that local government elections weren't held for almost 20 years under the People's Progressive Party Civic previously, do you think that too might be responsible?
Well, yeah, because you see, if you don't have money, look, the city has never had enough money to do anything, and that's because they never had the opportunity to be able to raise taxes. If you don't get raising taxes, you can't do anything, and the garbage piles up, the drainage is incomplete, and everything just deteriorates, you know, because there's not enough money in the system.
There is a need for, you believe, that increase in rates and taxes for the city, for Georgetown, will or could or has the possibility to see improvements to this building?
Yeah, I think so, because in 1994, Dr. Cherry Jagan at the time had 19 citizens of Worth, whom we called the former IMC, the Internal Management Committee. I was one of the citizens. I think he made a mistake. Anyway, he said he wanted citizens of Worth. I don't know what was my word. But the truth is, at that time, we told him that he needed to raise the raising taxes. But being a politician, he didn't think it was prudent, you know.
Okay, with all the knowledge and history that you have with respect to this building, if this building crumbles today or tomorrow, personally, how would you feel?
Very, very dejected, very disappointed. Very, very disappointed. Fortunately, there's a lot of drawings around. There's a lot of electronic data on the building that would allow us to be able to preserve it exactly as it is. You know, we could actually. There's a group of expatriates who came about 2 years ago and did a study of the building, and everything is digitized. So we know everything. And there was a European Union consultancy where they come and did a study of the building, and everything is documented.
Okay, and my final question to you, what would you like to say, if you look straight into the yellow camera there, what would you like to say to the powers that be, those in power, those in government, those at the legislative arm, and those responsible for the administration of City Hall? What would you like to say to them with respect to this building?
Well, I'd like to say that, like so many structures, this building is of great importance to the nation. In fact, it's along one of our main avenues, the Avenue of the Republic, and I think that money should be spent in rehabilitating. We reduced ourselves as a nation of mendicants, where everything we get seems to be from charity. I think when we push our hands in our own pockets, we tend to appreciate our own work. So I'm hoping that central government will take shame out of its face and at least try to prop up the building by putting in some money.
Mr. Carter, thank you very much for joining us on this program of Focus with Big Smith. My name is Leroy Smith. Thank you very much for joining us this week, and we'll see you here again next week. And if you, just before we go, we were speaking with Mr. Edward Carter. He's an engineer. Yeah. He's also one of those persons with the institutional memory as it relates to City Hall and Georgetown as a city, and all these buildings that you've seen, that you've grown to know in and around Georgetown, in environs of Georgetown. Thank you very much, and do join us here again next week for Focus with Big Smith.
Small Business Package is here. Get 1 month digital ads, 12 polo t-shirts, 12 caps, and 150 pens with your logo, of course. 50 bumper stickers and 1 banner stand, all for the amazingly low price of $130,000. Businesses with 1 to 12 employees eligible. Offer while stocks last. Impressions.